In this video, I'm going to explain to you why you have love handles yet your friends don't, why they may be more harmful to your health than you actually think, and what you can do to finally lose them and keep them at bay. If you're new around here, my name's Adam, I'm a health and fitness coach, and I'm on a journey to optimize my health, fitness and physique and to bring everyone else along on that journey with me. In this channel, we bridge the gap between science and application. For more than half of my life, I've been obsessed with the science and art of optimizing body composition. At the age of 18, my lifelong goal was to become a professional natural bodybuilder. And while that goal has kind of shifted over the years throughout the decades, I still, in my 30s, want to be in great shape. Now, over those years, I've helped countless amount of men achieve their ideal physique, and while some wanted bigger arms, others wanted larger traps, the number one concern that appeared over and over again was that inability to lose those love handles at the waist. In my opinion, love handles should be called hate handles because I've honestly never come across anybody that really likes them. I mean, don't get me wrong, being a shredded bodybuilder on stage with lines in your ass is not appealing to pretty much anybody, but realistically, is the dad bod any more aspirational? I mean, it is subjective, of course, and if you're okay with your love handles, then more power to you and you don't need to watch this video. So why do you have love handles? Well, it all starts with your parents, or at least in part. It's often said that genetics are the gun and lifestyle is the trigger. Think back to when you were in school. There was probably this one guy who came back after summer break and he just appeared to be jacked, even though he didn't even work out. Broad shoulders, a wide waist, he just had that look of being built. And then there was this other kid who just seemed to always be skinny. He had that really small, weak-looking, frail frame. You see, besides the amount of muscle that you actually have on your structure, your skeleton plays a huge role in how we look. Men tend to have wider shoulder clavicles or larger collarbones and narrower hips, giving you this kind of V-taper illusion look. Whereas with women, they tend to have the opposite. They have smaller shoulder clavicles and a wider waist. But even within men, there's a huge variance. Take for example myself and professional natural bodybuilder Brad Loomis. Although the differences are pretty subtle, my wider collarbones give me this greater V-shape effect. This is important when it comes to fat around the hips because a larger shoulder to waist ratio will give less of that love handle illusion, all else equal. Now, of course, neither of us have love handles in this situation because we're both incredibly lean. So if you have short collarbones but wide hip bones, you're going to be at more at risk to looking like you have love handles. Essentially, more attention will be brought to your hips compared to somebody that just has wider shoulders. The second genetic factor which plays a role is body fat distribution. That basically means where your body likes to hold fat. For example, if you're of South Asian descent, you're more likely to have more fat around your stomach compared to some of your European friends. This genetic component can account for up to 60% of where you hold your fat. So if your dad had love handles, the chances are you're going to be at more risk to having love handles too. You could have two people who are exactly the same height, they have the same amount of muscle mass, the same amount of body fat, yet one just holds more fat around his waist while the other has his fat more evenly distributed around his body. Now, some areas of fat just seem to be a lot more stubborn on some people than others. And what I've personally noticed working with clients is that if you free up this stubborn fat area, sometimes those areas don't regain fat in the same way as they did previously. For example, here's my client Mike. He had a lot of fat in his legs, but once he got lean enough, that fat disappeared. But interestingly, even when he gained more body fat a few months later, when we went into like a bulking phase, his legs never held as much fat as they previously did. So I think that if you do lose your love handles once, they'll be less likely to be prominent in the future, but that's more of like an anecdote and theory rather than a science. Now, there are two conditions that also cause more fat around the waistline. Cushing syndrome, which is basically a hormonal syndrome that means you constantly release too much cortisol, and the other is hypogonadism, essentially clinically low testosterone levels. Now, it is really important to note that these are clinically evaluated medical conditions. More often than not, that I see personal trainers online using this as ammo to scare people. They say things like you've got belly fat because you're stressed, or you need to do a testosterone boosting protocol with some bullshit supplements or food. Now, of course, having a stressful lifestyle will impact your ability to eat well and to exercise regularly, but I just want to reassure you that unless you've been diagnosed by a professional having done tests, then you don't need to worry about being some sort of unique case. So regardless of what you think might be causing the issue, it won't change any kind of practical advice from this video. So besides the fact that love handles just don't look the best, there could be a greater risk for health issues for those who do store more fat around their stomach. High levels of central body fat are an indicator that you might be storing something called visceral fat. The fat that you typically see is under your skin, but visceral fat is the fat that's in and around your organs. Now, visceral fat can be pretty dangerous because it increases your risk of diabetes and heart disease more so than the fat that's under your skin. The only real way to check your visceral fat levels is to do a scan such as DEXA, But I get my clients to do more practical measures that actually give you a backdoor insight into their cardiometabolic health. These are things like checking your waist to height ratio, looking at your blood lipids, and getting an average of your overall blood glucose levels. Okay, so enough of the background. How do you actually get rid of those love handles? It's way less complicated than you think. It boils down to just losing more fat. A lot more than you think you need to. One of my favorite authors, Mark Manson, explains it pretty well when talking about his weight loss transformation.
I was delusional. And I think most people who are unhealthy are delusional. Like, I knew I wasn't in shape and I knew I was overweight, but I didn't understand the extent of it and how bad it was. And I deluded myself into believing that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
I've coached a lot of men who needed to lose fat over the last number of years, and 99% of those had to lose way more than they initially thought. If you think that you need to lose 20 pounds of fat, the reality is you probably need to lose 40. Now, I was deluded as well. When I did my very first diet when I was in my early 20s, I thought that if I went from 210 to 190 pounds, that I would be jacked and lean. But I ended up being 171 pounds and way skinnier than I first anticipated. Most people just simply have way more fat and way less muscle than they think. That's pretty harsh to hear, but it's the truth. So to work out exactly how much fat you need to lose and how long it will take, you can use this free projection calculator that I made. Basically, you just put in your current body fat levels based on the photos provided, put in your current body weight, and then give your desired body fat levels, and it will spit out a weight and also timeline for you to follow. And this is something that I've been using with my clients for a long time, so the accuracy is pretty reasonable. I think this step is fundamental because you probably made pretty good progress in the past, but one, you just didn't realize what targets and timeframes were realistic, and two, you didn't realize how long it would actually take. Combine those two factors together and you get a recipe for feeling like you're putting in all this effort but no reward. Who's going to stick that out? Okay, so we've established that you need to lose more fat, you have your goals, your milestones. Now what's the best way to approach that? Well, there are two steps. Step one, keep the goal the goal. Your goal right now is simply to lose fat. Don't worry about all the other goals you have, like building more muscle, improving your VO2 max, or whatever else. These are great goals, but you don't want to be pulled in too many directions because you'll end up just achieving none of the goals. And step two, focus on maintaining a calorie deficit, and that's it. That is your North Star. I really feel sorry for those people when they say they're eating healthy or they're working out, but they just can't drop any body weight. The only requirement for dropping fat is to be in a calorie deficit. And the easiest way to do that is to track your calories. Don't overcomplicate it by worrying about hormones or specific fat loss protocols or foods. Just track your calories. I have a master's in nutrition and I'm doing a doctorate in human performance. If there was anybody that was going to overcomplicate this process, it would be me. But I also have this saying, optimize for consistency first, then intensity. Tracking calories isn't fun, but neither is trying to lose 5 pounds of fat for the last 9 months. You get to choose your hard. Now, you don't have to track your calories forever, but if you want a very specific outcome like drops in body weight percentages or body fat percentages, then it's way easier to have specific inputs. I don't track my calories all that often anymore, but trust me on this one. Tracking your food calls you out indirectly on your bullshit. All the little things that you consume that may have a little bit more calories than you think, it all adds up. Generally speaking, multiply your body weight in pounds by 10, and that gives you your calorie goal, and then multiply your body weight by 1 in pounds, and that gives you your protein goal in terms of grams per day. You can use apps like MyFitnessPal or MacroFactor. I personally prefer the latter, and you can use the code ADAM14 to get 2-week free trial. But these make life so much easier compared to when I first started tracking my calories many years ago. Everyone's metabolism is completely different and everyone's energy requirements and energy outputs are all different. So honestly, the best way to see if you're eating too much or eating too little is just to compare your weight loss or weight gain with your weekly progress in that projection calculator that I shared. And if you're overshooting, increase your calories slightly. And if you're undershooting, then reduce your calories slightly. Weight training should remain relatively similar to what you're already doing. What builds muscle maintains it. Trying to do some really high rep workout or specifically trying to burn body fat around the stomach just isn't going to work. I wouldn't try to add more things or remove anything or overcomplicate the process. But if you're not lifting weights, then I would just start with 2 to 3 days of something kind of simple. I recently started working with this client who completely stopped lifting weights because he wanted to try and drop that last few pounds of body fat and he wanted to focus on cardio. The problem with this is that if you stop lifting weights, you're going to lose muscle and you're just going to become a skinnier version of yourself, not a leaner version of yourself. I am an advocate, of course, for cardio and its health benefits, and it can help you maintain a calorie deficit and regulate hunger, but it's absolutely not necessary. But if you're only doing like 4, 5, 6,000 steps per day, then you're going to have to choose between these two options at some point. 1, eating fewer and fewer calories every single day, or 2, increasing your output. To keep things super straightforward, start by adding 2,000 to 3,000 steps to your current step count, which will take you about 20 minutes per day. That's simply like 10 minutes after your breakfast, 10 minutes after lunch, or simply parking further away in the car park, or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. All this stuff adds up. And then just refer back to your weekly progress and see if you need to make adjustments up or down if progress slows down. There's no point in trying to make things harder just for the sake of it. Now, there are going to be two major things that you realize when you start making some significant progress. One is that you feel way skinnier than you anticipated. You just thought you'd look bigger in clothes. And 2, on paper, it's going to feel simple, but there's going to be points where you find that it's hard and unmotivating. The reality is that most guys just haven't spent enough time trying to build muscle. So when they do get lean, they're just not quite satisfied with how they look. They just feel small. Here's the fix for this. Drop some body fat, get to a level that you're reasonably happy with, and then spend some time building muscle while minimizing fat gain. This will give you broader shoulders, bigger abs and lats, and give you a much better V-taper. And then if you still have some fat to lose, you can go back to fat loss in the future. Remember the example I gave of the bodybuilder Brad Loomis? His physique looks significantly better because he spent a lot of time building muscle in the right places to give him that V-taper look. The second major realization is that it's really difficult both mentally and physically to stay super lean. I stayed sub 10% body fat for almost 6 months, and by the end of it I had no energy, my training sucked, my libido just didn't exist, and I wanted to nap after I woke up. I've been around fitness influencers long enough to know that most of the guys who have six-pack year round are either on steroids, get paid to be that lean, or suffer like I did, or usually a combination of all three. Between where you are now and where I was, which is absolutely shredded, you will find your happy medium. There are trade-offs to being as lean and fit as professional athletes, much like there are trade-offs to eating out multiple times a week and being really inconsistent with your exercise. You get to choose what trade-offs you want in life, but it doesn't have to be black or white, one or the other. I'm all about optimizing health and fitness in a way that enhances the rest of your life. And if you want to learn more about my Built to Last program, which helps you go from watching YouTube videos and actually applying all of this stuff, then check out the link below, but no pressure. So if you do have love handles, just know that 1, you can lose them. Anyone who's got lean enough will lose them. 2, you might find that it's actually not worth trying to get there in the long run and to completely get rid of them. And 3, if you spend more time building muscle, you'll dramatically change how your physique looks.